There is a new number one in college basketball as the Duke Blue Devils pull up the upset of the Michigan Wolverines in Washington, D.C. We got to break it all down. What's up, guys? I'm Matt Long. Welcome to Duke Basketball 365. If you're a Duke Blue Devils fan, please hit that subscribe button. Only 10% of viewers are subscribed to the channel, and it really helps me out a ton. But let's jump right into what we just witnessed. The Duke Blue Devils beating the Michigan Wolverines 68-63 in Washington, D.C. We carried a 2-point lead from the first half into the second half, and it was back and forth for a while, but overall, in the end, Duke came out with a massive victory in a game that we were the 2.5-point underdog. But if you look at the advanced analytics and such like that, you saw that these teams were very evenly matched, and any given day, either one of these two teams could beat the other one. Don't think it's the last time we will be seeing the Wolverines, and if it's not, this is a very tough team that hopefully we don't have to see again, and if we did, it would be in the Final Four or even later in April. But game leaders for Duke, Boozer, no Caden, all Cameron. It was so obvious how different this team was when Cameron Boozer was on the floor versus when he was off the floor, when he exited late in the second half with 4 fouls, had to go to the bench. It was obvious that the players on the floor kind of were just grasping at straws. That first, I don't know what Jon Scheyer was thinking, that first possession without Cam Boozer, where we didn't have Isaiah Evans on the floor either. It felt like no one there was even looking to score. That was a really ugly possession. Jon Scheyer subbed in Isaiah Evans, and we smoothed it out, but Cameron Boozer is an absolute monster, and his size, it's not just what he does. Like, you look at 18 points, 10 rebounds, 7 assists. It's not just the stats that he put up. It's also the way that everyone around him moves differently when Cameron Boozer is on the floor, because he allows you to move around the other starting center. This time it was Dame Sarr for Michigan. We were able to put him in action, move him where we wanted to move him using Cameron Boozer, because Michigan knew that their other players in the paint were not going to be able to handle Cameron Boozer, which is why it was such a game changer that we were able to get those 3 fouls on Dame Sarr early in the first half. Full disclosure, I'm not sure where the second foul was on Dame Sarr. I don't know if it was low. I don't know if they're saying he hit our guy up high. Thought that was a little bit ticky-tacky. Maybe in the first half, the officials were a little bit favoring the Blue Devils, but some of the out-of-bounds calls that weren't correct, Michigan should have challenged. When that ball went off Patrick Gongba's hand, Michigan, Dusty May, their head coach, should have challenged that call. That was 1 minute after Michigan, or the officials, missed a pretty obvious out-of-bounds where the ball went off Dame Sarr's hands. It rolled off his fingertips, out of bounds. They called it off Duke. We challenged it. We got to retain possession. Michigan could have challenged some of those calls and gotten some more favorable outcomes for themselves in the first half. I can see it from a mile away. There are going to be a lot of complaints about the way the officiating was handled in this game. First 10 minutes of the second half, they called an extremely tight game, but it was largely consistent over the course of those first 30 minutes. Where the officials weren't super favoring Duke. Officials not the reason why the Duke Blue Devils won this game. Shot 45% from the field, which is exactly what you want to see. The free throws, looking at the stats at the end, Duke shot 71% from the free throw line, which is more or less where you want to be. Maybe, we want to be higher at 74%. Early on, it felt really bad because in the first half, or it felt really bad free throw wise. In the first half, we had back-to-back 1-and-1 opportunities where we missed the front end. We missed that first free throw attempt. Left some points on the board there, but not going to complain about the way the game went. The rebounding is where Duke really stood out versus one of the tallest teams in college basketball. I know they didn't have Dame Sarr on the court for a lot of it, but this was a really amazing stat for the Duke Blue Devils. Coming from thedevilsden.com on Twitter, Michigan started the game 9 for 11 from the field. The remainder of the way, Duke held them to 13 shots made on 44 attempts, which is under 30%, and Duke out-rebounded the Wolverines 41-28. I wanted to bring up the rebounding from this stat, which was absolutely amazing. The Blue Devils, it was really a team effort. everyone rebounding at an extremely high level in this matchup, which was just great to see. Absolutely great to see. But how did our predictive analytics going forwards for the future change? The rankings really didn't change. What the ratings were changed, meaning number 1 Michigan and number 2 Duke, the difference between their ratings, the gap got smaller, but where the teams were ranked didn't change. Michigan still ranked as the top team in the country in terms of predictive analytics, saying that if these two teams match up 100 times, Michigan is going to win something like 52 or 53% of the games, which if you watch the game tonight, I feel like you would agree with that because those two teams were very, very evenly matched, and more or less it's any given night for either one of those teams. Duke was better tonight, but just as easily Michigan could have been the better team and could outplay us and beat us on any given night. But the thing that really stood out, the defense between both squads, Michigan, the team with the highest defensive rating in the entire landscape of college basketball. The number is the lowest because it's like golf. You want to be lower. They have the number 1 rated defense in the country. We have the number 2 rated defense in the country, which is why it was a little bit head scratching for me when I saw the score predictions were in the mid 70s for both teams. I feel like a 63 to 68 outcome was much more realistic for the two teams that were number 1 and number 2 in defensive rating. So I'm not worried about our offense not scoring a ton of points, our offense not looking great at times in this game. Michigan has done that to so many teams. Michigan beat Gonzaga, who is currently the number 9 rated team in terms of our KenPom predictive analytics. Michigan beat them 101 to 61. This was a big time win for the Duke Blue Devils. We are rated a 37.26, which should be good for something like a top 6 rating in the history of KenPom starting in 1997. This is an extremely, extremely competitive team when it comes to winning a national championship. A little bit scary. Boozer carries, I'm not going to say he carries the team, but having a player that averages over 21 points per game has historically not been a good sign for March Madness in terms of winning your region. So I don't love that. That's why I was highly impressed in the first half when Jay Billis announced a stat about Michigan where he talked about how Yaxel Lendenberg is their leading scorer at something like 14.3 points per game, which is crazy because this team is at the time the number 4 team in offensive rating, but their highest scorer doesn't score a lot of points. So the fact that Cameron Boozer averages 22 points per night, historically, that's not a good stat for March Madness in terms of winning your region, but a KenPom net rating of 37.26 just screams this is a guaranteed Final Four team unless they match up in their region. For whatever reason, they match up with another team that has a KenPom rating north of 35. So if we were unlucky enough where, let's say, Michigan loses 2 more games and their net rating is still really, really high, and we have to see Michigan as our number 2 seed, or Arizona, same thing, they lose some games, they end up as our number 2 seed, that would be bad for the future. But come Monday at 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock, whenever the AP poll comes out, the Duke Blue Devils are going to be on top of that thing for the first time all season. Can't wait for that. Going to be huge in terms of seeding for March Madness. The top seed, in theory, should be getting the weaker 2 seed, which matters a lot to us because as of the rankings today, Illinois rated as a 2 seed when we believe that they should be a 1 seed looking at our predictive analytics, but we've still got a lot of basketball to be played. Still have 7 more days. So I guess we got 1 more week of February, and then we have a couple games in the beginning of March. Got those conference tournaments, and then it will be time for the big dance. Big time win. Super excited. That's what I got for this video. If you stuck around this long, I appreciate you taking the time to watch the video all the way through. Please hit that like button if you haven't already. Hit the subscribe button if you're new to the channel, and go Duke.